Democracy's secret shareholders imagine a world where democracy has a new set of rules, not based on the will of the people, but on the interests of a select few. Welcome to the reality of modern U.S. politics, where a tiny group of billionaires has a disproportionate influence on election outcomes. You might be wondering, how is this possible? Well, let's start with a shocking fact. The 10 wealthiest families in the U.S. fund an astonishing 70% of U.S. election advertising. These families have an estimated combined net worth of over $1.2 trillion, making them some of the most influential players in the country. They're the ones who shape the narrative, dictate policy, and decide who gets elected. But here's the thing, you're not one of them. You're just a citizen trying to make sense of a system that seems more and more rigged against you. Now, you might be thinking, what's the big deal? Politics is always about money. But the truth is, the concentration of wealth and power among a few families raises serious questions about the integrity of our democratic process. When a tiny elite controls the purse strings, who are they really serving? The people or their own interests? Let's take a closer look at some of these influential families. There's the Walton family, who made their fortune in retail with Walmart. They've invested heavily in politicians who support tax breaks for big corporations and oppose legislation that would increase the minimum wage. Then there's the Koch brothers, who built their empire in oil and have used their wealth to push for policies that benefit the fossil fuel industry. But it's not just about the money, it's about the networks they've built. These families have connections to think tanks, media outlets, and lobby groups that shape public opinion and influence policy decisions. It's like a web of influence that's hard to untangle. But one thing is clear. They're not just funding elections. They're buying a seat at the table. As we explore the hidden world of donor networks, we'll uncover some surprising connections between Wall Street, media, and policy think tanks. You'll see how the same families who fund election advertising also own major media outlets, shaping the narrative and dictating what issues get coverage. The implications are far-reaching, and it's time to ask some tough questions. Are we living in a democracy where the people truly have a say, or are we just pawns in a game controlled by the wealthy elite? The answer lies in the numbers, and the numbers are staggering. According to a recent study, the 10 wealthiest families in the U.S. have donated over $1.5 billion to politicians since 2000. That's a staggering amount, but what's even more astonishing is that only a handful of these families are responsible for a significant portion of those donations. It's like a small group of billionaires is single-handedly funding the election process. But here's the thing, it's not just about the money, it's about the power it buys. These families have significant interests in industries like finance, energy, and healthcare, which means they have a direct stake in policy decisions that affect their investments. It's a classic case of conflict of interest, where the interests of the wealthy elite are prioritized over those of the general public. As we continue to dig deeper, we'll expose some of the surprising connections between these families and the politicians they fund. You'll see how politicians who receive donations from these families often vote in favor of policies that benefit their donors, even if it means harming the broader public. The concentration of wealth and power among a few families is a ticking time bomb for democracy. It's a recipe for corruption, where the wealthy elite use their influence to rig the system in their favor. But it's not too late to make a change. We can start by demanding transparency in campaign finance, holding politicians accountable for their actions, and pushing for policies that benefit the many, not just the few. As we conclude this section, I want to leave you with a question. Are you ready to take back democracy from the secret shareholders who control it? The journey ahead won't be easy, but one thing is clear. The fate of our democracy depends on it. Stay tuned for the next part of our investigation, where we'll explore the hidden world of donor networks and the surprising connections between Wall Street, media, and policy think tanks. The dark money network democracy has always been a delicate balance of power, where the voices of the people are meant to shape the course of history. But in reality, a tiny group of billionaires has a disproportionate influence on the outcome of elections and policy decisions. They operate through a network of donor-advised funds, think tanks, and advocacy groups that connects Wall Street to media and policy organizations. This is the world of dark money, where the true sources of influence and power are obscured. Imagine a group of investors who pool their resources together to shape public opinion and policy. Sounds like a classic example of corporate influence, right? But here's the thing. This group doesn't have to disclose their identities or their motivations. They can remain anonymous, using their wealth to shape the world according to their interests. Meet the Walton family, heirs to the Walmart fortune. They've donated millions to conservative causes, funneling their money through a network of dark money groups. These groups then use that money to influence public opinion and shape policy decisions. It's a game of cat and mouse, where the true players are hiding behind a veil of anonymity. But the Walton family is just one example. There are many others like them, using their wealth to shape the world according to their interests. The Koch brothers, for instance, have been instrumental in shaping the conservative movement. They've donated millions to think tanks and advocacy groups, using their money to influence public opinion and policy decisions. So, how does this network work? It's quite simple, really. Dark money groups receive donations from wealthy individuals and corporations, which are then used to fund lobbying efforts, advocacy campaigns, and even electoral advertising. But here's the thing. These donations are often anonymous, making it difficult to track the true sources of influence and power. The network is extensive, with connections to media outlets, think tanks, and policy organizations. It's a web of influence that spans the entire country, shaping public opinion and policy decisions in its wake. And yet, most citizens have no idea that this network even exists. One of the key players in this network is the Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank that's been instrumental in shaping Republican policy. But the Heritage Foundation is more than just a think tank. It's a hub of dark money activity, receiving millions in donations from anonymous donors. The donations are then used to fund lobbying efforts, advocacy campaigns, and even electoral advertising. It's a game of influence, where the true players are hiding behind a veil of anonymity. And the consequences are far-reaching, shaping public opinion and policy decisions in ways that benefit the wealthy and powerful. So, what's the impact of this network on democracy? It's substantial, to say the least. The network's influence has shaped policy decisions on everything from taxation to healthcare, often in ways that benefit the wealthy and powerful. And yet, most citizens have no idea that this network even exists. The truth is, democracy is being hijacked by a small group of billionaires who are using their wealth to shape the world according to their interests. It's a game of cat and mouse, where the true players are hiding behind a veil of anonymity. But it's not just about the billionaires. It's about the system that allows them to operate with impunity. In the next section, we'll explore the connections between this network and the media, revealing how the wealthy and powerful use their influence to shape public opinion and policy decisions. But for now, let's take a closer look at the world of dark money, where the true sources of influence and power are obscured. Pause for 3 seconds. The dark money network is a complex web of influence that spans the entire country, shaping public opinion and policy decisions in its wake. It's a game of cat and mouse, where the true players are hiding behind a veil of anonymity. But it's not just about the billionaires. It's about the system that allows them to operate with impunity. Pause for 2 seconds. So, what can we do to reclaim democracy from the clutches of the wealthy and powerful? It's a question that we'll explore in the next section, where we'll reveal the connections between this network and the media. But for now, let's take a closer look at the world of dark money, where the true sources of influence and power are obscured. Pause for 3 seconds. The truth is, democracy is being hijacked by a small group of billionaires who are using their wealth to shape the world according to their interests. It's a game of cat and mouse, where the true players are hiding behind a veil of anonymity. But it's not just about the billionaires. It's about the system that allows them to operate with impunity. Pause for 2 seconds. So, let's keep exploring the world of dark money, where the true sources of influence and power are obscured. In the next section, we'll reveal the connections between this network and the media, exposing the ways in which the wealthy and powerful use their influence to shape public opinion and policy decisions. The rise of the superdonors. Imagine a world where a small group of people has the power to shape the course of history, where their interests become the driving force behind policy decisions and election outcomes. Welcome to the reality of modern U.S. politics, where the rise of superdonors has created a system where politicians are often beholden to their largest donors, rather than the general public. It all began in 2010, when the Supreme Court made a landmark decision in Citizens United v. FEC. This ruling opened the floodgates for unlimited corporate and special interest spending in politics, allowing billionaires and corporations to pour millions of dollars into election campaigns. The impact was immediate, and the landscape of U.S. politics was forever changed. Fast forward to today, and a small group of superdonors has dominated the election landscape, investing heavily in politicians and policy initiatives that serve their interests. These individuals, such as Sheldon Adelson, the billionaire casino magnate, and Tom Steyer, the hedge fund manager, have become the driving force behind many election campaigns. They wield significant influence, not only through their financial contributions but also through their network of connections and relationships within the political establishment. Consider the case of the Koch brothers, who have been instrumental in shaping the Republican Party's agenda. Through their vast network of think tanks and advocacy groups, they have been able to shape the conversation on key issues such as taxation, healthcare, and environmental policy. Their influence extends far beyond their financial contributions, as they have been able to shape the very fabric of the Republican Party's ideology. But the rise of superdonors has also created a system where politicians are often beholden to their largest donors, rather than the general public. This is often referred to as the revolving door of politics, where politicians and special interest groups engage in a cycle of influence and corruption. When politicians are under pressure to raise funds from donors, they often prioritize the interests of their largest contributors over the needs of their constituents. Take, for example, the case of Senator Lindsey Graham, who has received millions of dollars in campaign contributions from the defense industry. As a result, he has become a vocal advocate for increased military spending, even in the face of opposition from his constituents. This is a clear example of how the influence of superdonors can shape policy decisions and undermine the will of the people. The impact of this system is far-reaching, with many Americans feeling disconnected from the democratic process. When politicians are more accountable to their donors than their constituents, it can lead to a breakdown in trust and a growing sense of disillusionment with the system. This is precisely what has happened in the United States, where many people feel that their voices are not being heard. As we delve deeper into the world of superdonors, it becomes clear that the influence of these individuals extends far beyond the realm of politics. They have connections to Wall Street, media outlets, and policy think tanks, creating a vast network of influence that shapes the very fabric of American society. This is a story of power and privilege, where a small group of people has become the driving force behind many of the decisions that shape our lives. So, what does this mean for American democracy? The rise of superdonors has created a system where politicians are beholden to their largest donors, rather than the general public. This has led to a breakdown in trust and a growing sense of disillusionment with the system. It's a system where the voices of the people are not being heard, and where the interests of the wealthy and powerful are being prioritized over the needs of the many. As we continue to explore this complex web of influence and power, it becomes clear that the stakes are high. The future of American democracy hangs in the balance, and the decisions we make today will shape the course of history for generations to come. But for now, the question remains, what can be done to restore the voice of the people in American politics? The media's role in the game deep within the heart of the American democracy. A shadowy network of billionaire donors has been quietly shaping the narrative, influencing public opinion, and shaping policy decisions. But what happens when the same families and networks that fund elections also own and operate major media outlets? The lines between journalism and advocacy begin to blur, compromising the independence and credibility of the media and eroding trust in institutions. Meet the Murdochs, the Redstones, and the Ziff brothers, just a few of the families who have amassed a significant stake in the media landscape. Their influence extends far beyond the news desks into the very fabric of the democratic process. By controlling the narrative, they shape public opinion, and in doing so, sway the outcome of elections. The concentration of media ownership has allowed for the amplification of special interest voices and the marginalization of opposing views. A study by the Center for Responsive Politics found that in 2020, just 15 media outlets accounted for over 70% of all election coverage. This narrow perspective creates a skewed public discourse, where the voices of the few are amplified while the many are left unheard. The consequences of this media landscape are far-reaching. In an era where trust in institutions is at an all-time low, the blurring of lines between journalism and advocacy has led to a crisis of credibility. Viewers are left wondering whether they're witnessing a news report or a carefully crafted narrative designed to influence public opinion. But it's not just the media that's at stake. The very fabric of democracy is being compromised. When special interests have the power to shape the narrative, they also have the power to shape policy decisions. This concentration of power has led to a system where the interests of the few are prioritized over the needs of the many. As we delve deeper into the world of media ownership, we're faced with a stark reality. The voices of the people are being drowned out by the interests of the wealthy and powerful. In a democracy, the people should be the ones shaping the narrative, not the other way around. But in this twisted game of power and influence, the media has become just another tool for the wealthy to shape the outcome of elections and policy decisions. The question remains, who is in control of the narrative, and whose interests are being served? As we continue our investigation into the world of billionaire donors and media ownership, one thing is clear: the game has changed. And it's time for the people to take back control of their democracy. Retention hook. What happens when the media becomes just another tool for the wealthy to shape the narrative? How can we reclaim our democracy and ensure that the voices of the people are heard? Engagement moment. Share your thoughts on social media. What do you think is the most pressing issue facing our democracy today? How can we work together to create a more inclusive and equitable media landscape? The future of democracy. As we delve into the intricate web of billionaire donors and their influence on U.S. politics, it's only natural to ponder the future of democracy itself. What does it mean to have a system where the voices of the majority are constantly drowned out by the interests of a privileged few? The concentration of wealth and power among a select group of families and their manipulation of the media undermine the very principles of democracy, threatening the integrity of the electoral process. The implications of this system are far-reaching, affecting not only politics but also the economy, the environment, and social justice. When the same individuals and families who reap enormous profits from their investments in the fossil fuel industry, for instance, also fund campaigns that deny climate change, it's clear that the interests of the many are being sacrificed for the benefit of the few. The same holds true for issues like income inequality, education, and healthcare, where the agendas of special interests often prevail over the needs of the general public. But this is not a battle that can be won by just one party or ideology. It's a fight for the very soul of democracy itself. It's time for citizens to reclaim democracy from the shadows of special interests and demand a more transparent, accountable, and representative system. This means holding elected officials accountable for their actions, demanding greater transparency in campaign finance, and pushing for policies that benefit the many, not just the few. As we explore the future of democracy, it's essential to recognize the role that citizens can play in shaping this narrative. By engaging in civic activism, supporting organizations that promote transparency and accountability, and demanding greater media literacy, we can begin to break the grip of special interests and restore the principles of democracy to their rightful place. But what does this mean for us, the viewers? It means recognizing that our individual actions, big or small, can contribute to a larger movement for change. It means demanding greater transparency and accountability in politics and media, and holding our elected officials accountable for their actions. As we move forward, let's remember that the future of democracy is not just about politicians or policymakers, but about us, the citizens, and the choices we make every day. The battle for democracy is a long and difficult one, but it's a fight worth fighting. By working together, we can create a system that truly represents the interests of the many, rather than just the privileged few.